everybody. It's Romania Black. I'm not looking forward to this episode. I rewatched episode 4 and because I had a thought, okay? And I'm recording ahead. As I record this, episode 12 of season 2 is just airing on YouTube to show y'all how far ahead I am. And episode 2 has just aired on Patreon. So I am recording a little bit ahead just because I'm afraid of spoilers and I don't want to get anything spoiled. So I'm watching a little bit ahead. But I had a thought, and it's kind of a crazy thought. I've got a couple comments that were noted that I want to bring up, but I had a thought. I was like, they haven't announced what ERWIN's sentence is. The one military interior police guy told Levi that they thought that the plan was they were going to hang ERWIN and then all subsequent scouts before, unless Levi and them turn themselves in. That was the plan. And I'm like, that's pretty grisly. But then I got to thinking about it and I was like, the worst case scenario I could think of isn't that ERWIN gets hung. I mean, that's a pretty terrible scenario and I don't want to see it. But I was like, what if, oh my God, what if they turn ERWIN into a Titan? I said back in season 2 I wanted ERWIN to become a Titan, but I meant a Titan shifter. Like one that could turn back into ERWIN. What if they turned him into a Titan? Like they just turned him into one and then had one of the Survey Corps members kill him. That would be awful. That would be awful because a part of me was like, oh, well, they'll turn ERWIN into a Titan and have him eat the coordinate. No, they're not going to do that because they don't want ERWIN to have that power. But that would be the worst case scenario is if they turned ERWIN into a Titan and one of the Survey Corps members had to kill him. That would be the absolute worst sadistic thing Isayama could do. I'd be like, how dare you, sir? But again, I don't know how that's possible. The only reason I bring that up is that they have clearly something in mind to eat Eren to become the coordinate. So they clearly either have kept a Titan hidden all this time, waiting for the moment to eat the coordinate, or they've either done that, or they have the ability to turn people into Titans just like the Beast Titan does. And that's terrifying. I don't like that either. So I don't know. That thought came to me at work today and I was like, I don't like that at all. So it probably won't happen, but I don't want ERWIN to die. I don't want ERWIN to die. I've really come to like ERWIN's character, and I don't want him to die. There, I said it. So that's that. I had to get that off my chest before we started the episode. That thought came to me during work today, and I was like, nope. So I did have some comments from y'all from Patreon, and a couple from YouTube that I wanted to address. So Moth pointed out, and some of you have pointed this out on YouTube as well, or on Patreon. Some of you have pointed this out as well, that the parents in the couple in the hot air balloon in episode 2, those were Armin's parents. And I was like, okay. And they were like, it's never brought up again. It's just a thing. You might as well know it now. It's never going to get brought up again. I was like, okay, fine. That's really tragic. One, because the fact that Armin's parents were smart enough to make a hot air balloon explains why Armin is so smart. That's pretty cool. It also begs the question, they built a hot air balloon, I guess because the military police have basically killed and silenced anybody that tried to fly away. I thought that. I was like, we have guns in this world. We have cannons. We've seen a hot air balloon in episode 2. I'm like, where's the Zeppelin? Where's the giant gas Zeppelin? I get that they don't have electricity, perhaps, advanced enough to have cars or things like that, but I'm like, where's the Zeppelin? They tried to make a hot air balloon, but clearly the military police stamped it out, so that's why it doesn't exist. Makes sense. But that's really, really sad because it ties ERWIN and Armin together because ERWIN lost his father to the military police because he knew too much, and Armin lost his parents to the military police because they knew too much. And so it's really sad, but the problem with it all is that ERWIN found out. ERWIN knows and knew from a young age that the government killed his father. Like, he's known for years since he was a child that was the case because of what his father taught him. Armin doesn't know. So Armin's going through this existential crisis about killing someone when it's like, dude, the person that you're sad you killed, the people they work for killed your family. So he doesn't even know that. And he'll probably never find that out. It's like, unless Armin runs into Sonus and Sonus recognizes Armin or recognizes the name and tells him, that's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, Armin's never going to find out. And it's really super tragic. But so there's that. But there was also the idea that Moth brought up that Armin, I said in episode 2 that Armin wasn't a gambler like ERWIN does because I'm making comparisons between Armin and ERWIN. But Moth pointed out that Armin doesn't gamble other people's lives, but he gambles himself quite a bit. He was willing to make the gamble with Annie about being a good person, and he was willing to make the gamble with Bertolt and Reiner because at the end of the day, those are things that Armin could apologize for. They didn't kill anybody. They're things he could apologize for and things that involved himself being gambled more than anything. But by him killing someone, you can't really apologize for that. And that makes a connection to Bertolt and Reiner. Because Bertolt and Reiner, when Eren gets mad at them and is like, all you said was sorry, Bertolt's like, what else am I going to say? And Reiner's like, what else do you want us to say? You want us to apologize? Is that going to make you feel better? It's the same thing that Armin's dealing with. So I was like, damn, that's so cool to see the parallels drawn between Bertolt and Reiner and their struggle with what they've done. And now Armin's getting a taste of it and seeing just how it feels. And so are all of the other Survey Corps cadets in the Levi squad. It's like, it's so cool. We're getting that slow recognition that each other, the sides are, it's becoming a three-way war, honestly. It's becoming the Titans, the Titandom, the Titan Shifters, the military police and the government and the royal family, and then the Survey Corps and the people. It's becoming a three-way war. So I'm interested to know if maybe that's how Eren becomes that third-party character. Maybe he doesn't go with the government or the police. Maybe he doesn't go with Titan Shifters. Maybe he stays in that third party with the people in the Survey Corps. That could be pretty cool. I'm interested to see if that develops. That would be very, very interesting. But I just saw that connection for Armin, not only with Erwin, but also with Bertolt and Reiner. So I thought that was really interesting. Make Me Dinosaur pointed out that it took 6 months to animate that godly animation of Levi in episode 2. Chef's kiss, my friends. I've watched that scene probably a dozen times since I've watched episode 2. It never gets old. It's still so good. And you notice little things about the animation each time you go back and watch. It's like, it's masterful. I hope they won an award or all of the awards for that scene. It's worthy of it. We're not worthy of it. And then Nathan Hardy pointed out that the Reese family might actually be a false name, that they might actually be Fritz, that Rod might be Rod Fritz, and that would be, but I'm going to keep calling them the Reese family right now because Historia's gone through 3 name changes at this point, if that's the case. We've gone from Krista Lenz to Historia Reese to Historia Fritz. I ain't doing it. Not yet. Until we get confirmation, I'm going to be like, she's Historia Reese for now. And then if it comes out that she has another name, poor girl, then if she's got to go change her legal name again, then we'll call her by that. But I was like, oh my gosh. Also, Nathalie and OL, I've mentioned you here before, YouTube commenters, they were talking about how the thing with Hannes was kind of foreshadowed back in episode 1, season 1, that happened in episode 12 of season 2. The whole thing with Eren's dream. Eren's dream is still weird. I went back to season 1, episode 1, and I watched that dream sequence one time because I was like, I'm going to watch it once and see if I see Hannes. I didn't see Hannes in it, oddly enough. I saw Carla, and I saw the Smiley Titan eating Carla, which is funny because it's almost like he saw a vision of it. So I'm wondering if the coordinate is capable, are the Titan shifters capable of seeing visions of the future? Perhaps, I don't know. But there was a couple images that stuck out in that watch through that I wanted to bring up before we start the episode, and I'm not doing too bad. It's only 8.5 minutes. One is that there was a either military or regal regalia that looked kind of royal or fancy, but we've not seen any of the characters in the show wear it yet, so I thought that was curious. And then there was a baby's crib with this really elaborate curtains that looked kind of like royalty. But the thing is, it wasn't the royal family that we've seen it in the Wall Kingdom, because the Wall Kingdom's crest is the tree. It's orange and has green in the tree. This was green and red, and it was like a daisy. It was like a flower. So I don't know what that is symbolizing. I'm like, was Eren born on the Titan Shifter side? I don't know. Don't know. Very curious. I don't know. But there was that. That was weird. And the other thing was there kept being a shot. There's a shot of some Survey Corps members that were dead up against a tree. I think 5 or 6 of them. And then there was a hazel-eyed man with dark hair that was like being lifted off the ground that was dead. And I'm like, is he the coordinate? Was he the old coordinate that Eren ate? I don't know. But it was just, I didn't see Hannes. I saw Carla getting eaten, but I didn't see Hannes. So that's what I was looking for. But I didn't see that. So I watched it once and I'm like, I'm not going to go back and rewatch it because chances are stuff that I saw from that imagery is going to come back up again. I don't know the context of it, but it's probably going to come back up again. But I think the dream thing is weird. Is it possibly suggesting that ever since the fall of Shiganshina, Eren's had these Titan abilities? I don't know. But I'm still like, if that's the case, and then why did Eren have the second dream where Grisha was giving him the shot of something and gave him the basement key, and Eren said, "You've gone crazy since Mom died." He wouldn't have said that from the start if it was before Shiganshina. I don't know. It's just weird. But I'm really nervous. This episode is called Reply. I'm assuming it's a reply to... maybe we talked in the last episode about episode 4 being setup, and then the rest of season 3 part 1 I think is going to be the payoffs of those setups. And so I can't believe we're almost halfway through part 1. It's crazy, which we're still only a fourth of the way through the entire season, which makes me feel better. I'm loving this season, and so I don't want it to go by too fast, and I feel like it's going by so fast, and that's probably because I'm watching ahead to stay away from spoilers. But in any case, I feel like Reply is referring to, we set all these things up, we've asked these questions, now we're waiting for the reply. I don't know, I'm nervous, I don't want Erwin to die, and the last thing I want is for him to become a Titan. Nope. Don't you do it, show. Don't you do it. It's Isayama. He ain't afraid to make us feel pain. I'm not having it. I'm not having it at all. I need an extra before I go in. All right, guys. I have, as per usual, talked for over 11 minutes. But I had to get off my chest. So I finally have some comments to work through. And I'll probably wait to record the next episode until the next set of episodes have premiered, in case y'all have more comments. But let's do this. Let's just brace myself. It'll be fine. So episode 42, episode 5 of season 3, Reply. We are going to start that here in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Well, I'm so happy that Erwin's alive. I had resigned. I was really getting worked up in the episode, and I was like, as they were like talking about his sentence and saying they were going to hang him, I was like, no, I can't do it. I don't want it. And oh my God, it makes sense. Here's the thing. I'm very surprised by the 4 guys in charge with the fake king. I'm very surprised by them. I honestly am. And we'll talk about that, but I don't know if maybe I thought there was more to them. And so maybe I was just building them up more in my head of what they were, but, or it's just, or Lord Reese is the main baddie and he's actually the one we should be afraid of, would make sense. But I'm so floored that, one, there was an actual coup, that it took place in this episode, that it worked, and that those guys are not in power anymore. Oh man, Zachary, what a callback to season 1. Our guy, I talked about episode 14 in the last reaction with Levi, and I was like, man, getting callbacks with him because he was the judge of Eren and Levi in the case. And it all makes sense now why they let Erwin, at the time, in episode 14, I was like, okay, well, there were reasons they let Eren go with Levi and Erwin. It was just a gamble that paid off. But in hindsight now, it's like, no, Zachary actually hates the elite. He hates the upper 3%. And so he's like, okay, he just would do anything he could to make the military police, suffer a little more. So that's interesting. But this episode, it was like from start to finish, I was starting to feel a little triumphant. And then at the very end there, Isayama's like, hey, hold on. There's just stuff with Titan we can't forget about. And I was like, oh shit, yeah. So I'm so elated right now. I'm like, my heart feels so light because Erwin didn't die. I'm honest with y'all. I was fully prepared this episode for him to bite the dust. I was going to go out. I have like a little fire pit outside. I was going to film myself like burning a portrait of Erwin and like toasting a marshmallow over it. I had a plan. I was going to be so sad. And I had a plan to how to start episode 6, the reaction for it. And it didn't pan out, luckily. But man, this episode, Reply. So talking about lots of different things. Reply, talking about how the questions were asked and here's how they were answered. And here's how everyone replied. And now the whole conversation with NILE makes much more sense. That Erwin was gonna bring it back up. He was like, I just wanted to check, make sure your family's in Wall Rose, right? Okay, cool. Because it's gonna come back up. Holy cow. So yeah, we need to walk through this episode. I was floored. So confused at the end, but floored here. So yeah, that recap and everything, man, the idea that, yeah, and by the end of this, they're trying to keep the peace with the people being like, no, everything's fine. We're all good. Things aren't going to be status quo, but the good news is we're getting the fake people out of power, and we're going to find a way to put the new princess, the rightful ruler, in charge. Notably, I find it interesting that Lord Reese specifically was not present for that trial. He was too busy getting the whole power in the vessel thing, which we're going to talk about the power in the vessel. That was brought up this episode. Very, very interesting. I like that this guy that looked creepy that I thought was the fake king, it turns out is just a guy that is like an actor that's meant to sit there and look menacing, but is actually not. They're like, wake up, like at the very end there. Again, we're going to talk about that. It had very Iron Man 3 vibes when they do the Mandarin and it turns out he's an actor and he's not really that menacing. I had that same vibe with old King Fritz here. I can't believe the last 5 episodes I've been worried about him, and it turns out he's just an actor that's a fraud. So intriguing. But yeah, so curious because Kenny's absent in all of this. Kenny's still out there and he's a threat, so we still got that. We got this whole thing with this girl, Frida, who seems kind in the OP and ED, but in the episode itself, she seemed kind of cold and distant. So we're going to talk about that. That's interesting. The whole thing with the royal family got brought up, and I'm very curious about all of it. Very curious indeed. So yeah, but again, a coup and PYXIS. Man, PYXIS being a player, Zachary being a player, Eren and even ERWIN and even NILE being a player in all this. But yeah, Kenny's still at large. Him and his ragtag group are still out there. So even though this coup has happened and for right now everything is okay, Kenny could still cause some chaos and disruption, especially if he knows that there's no repercussions right now because it's all under this military chaos, right? So the fact that he knows he can do things and he's not going to get arrested immediately for it is concerning. To me anyway, very concerning. So yeah, all the military leaders showing up at the Capitol for Erwin's sentence. And that disgusted me because it's like they say it's a sentence and a trial, but they're constructing a gallows like it's already been decided that they're like, oh, that's the gallows for hanging their commander. Like there's going to be a trial, but he's facing final judgment, but we all know what's going to happen. And I mean, they bring up the questions that we were asking the last several episodes. Erwin says if humanity loses the scout regiment, the humanity loses its spear. I like that metaphor. It's like when enemies close in, you guard not with a shield, but a spear that eliminates the threat. That's such a telltale sign of Erwin's mentality about how to go head in, offensive, head on. And that's kind of been Erwin's mentality since season 1, if you think about it. His whole thing has been always when they do face the Titans. I mean, obviously, back in No Regrets, he established they wanted to try to avoid casualties, but when they have to face them, they're like, a shield ain't gonna cut it. You gotta go in there with the knife, slice the nape, and move on. That eliminates the threat. And so, man, you get the close-ups of these guys, their faces, and I like on one end, you have the lurch guy and the short man in the green jacket with these big eyes looking unimpressed, and then you cut to the other side of the aisle, and you see the guy from the church and the guy with the handkerchief, and they have much thinner faces and narrower eyes, and none of them look pleased. None of them look pleased. And they're like, suppose now if in this instant Wall Rose was breached, the residents of Wall Rose would again flee and take refuge in Walsena. So the earlier evacuation left your stockpiles with nothing to give, so you're all screwed if that happens. So what are you going to do? Most of the residents would be forced to fight for survival, and it would cause a civil war, which is the last thing. It's like humanity would be split into 2 factions and a civil war would erupt. Which is interesting. So if we're talking about Rose, Cena, and Maria, and I talked at the beginning of this reaction about the idea that there's not 2 parties involved, but 3. Again, Isayama really likes the rule of 3, right? If we looked at the royal family symbol, and I'm thinking it's tying back to those 3 kids in that ED for season 3, I still think they're Maria, Cena, and Rose, because you have the 3 branches of the tree, you have the 3 daughters, you have the 3 branches of the military, you have the garrisons, the scouts, and the military police. It's the big rule of 3. We've had 3 trios throughout most of this series that we've been identifying. But the idea that maybe you can't have just a two-party system. There has to be a third involved, right? So if you just have Rose and Cena, then humanity split into two factions and civil war will erupt. You have to have that third factor, that third variable. I don't know if there's something to that, but it's interesting. So, yeah. And Erwin is logical and he's smart like his dad. So he says, even if the wall was not breached, Walrose is continually suffering a food shortage. And all of you can tell that some of the military police, they're looking at him and they have this look on their face like they know what he's saying is true. Because like NILE, they're from those places. They know their families are suffering. And so they can relate to Erwin. What he's saying is reaching them. And so, yeah, he's just saying what they already know. And it may not be Titans that breach Wall Cena. And yeah, the king just sits there and watches. There's a chance that the residents of Walrose will do it first. Yeah, if people continue to starve in Walrose, they ain't gonna stay there. They're not gonna go where the Titans are. They're gonna come to Cena. Yeah, and the military police knows. And NILE just sitting there looking, and PYXIS, PYXIS is thinking like, damn, he's good. Like, you know PYXIS just sitting there stone-faced, but that's what he's thinking this whole time. He's like, Erwin, you're great. But yeah. And so Erwin's like, we have to reclaim Wall Maria. If humanity is going to survive and have a future, it's the only way. We've got to get more territory. And then these guys have the gall to ask if the scouts are needed for such a cause. This guy, the short guy in the green jacket, I was glad they shut him up. He was getting on my nerves. But our duty as scouts has been always to charge forth at the enemy. I love that phrasing because it is implying, he didn't say Titans. Erwin did not say Titans. He said charge forth at the enemy, meaning whoever is an enemy to humanity is going to be an enemy to us. And that was like a subtle little foreshadowing that, yeah, y'all are the enemy right now. So we need to get rid of you in order to move forward and save humanity. This episode, the payoff was so good. It was so good. And then Isayama at the end was like, no happy ending yet for our main character. And it was like, crap, we still have Eren to worry about. But yeah, cowering away will not solve anything. And that's exactly what they do when they're threatened. And then, yeah, Erwin says, or could it be you have some sort of secret plan to overcome this ordeal? And I like that we get the big, shocking, like, multiple tier panels of all them, like, dun, dun, dun. Like, oh my God. But here's the thing. So, yeah, they clearly did have a plan, and it's to get Eren's power. But what we don't know, and in hindsight, what's kind of frustrating about this episode, so I'm glad they didn't, for a second, I thought they were hanging them all at the end of this episode. I thought they were about to have a public execution. But then I realized it was Zachary and Erwin on top of the platform. And I was like, oh, never mind. So they need to keep these guys alive because they need to question them. Like, what was your plan? You wanted Eren and Historia. Why? What was the point? So I'm curious to know if they get these guys to talk. And I noticed that, like, the churchman, or no, the one guy with the handkerchief, he's not saying much of anything. The churchman's not saying much of anything. And the other guys, yeah, the one guy with the kerchief looks pretty annoyed by it all. But yeah, they're like, excuse us? Us have ulterior motives? And then Erwin, those eyes, those fierce eyes. And I didn't realize it, but this episode, in the last episode, his face didn't look quite as roughed up. In this episode, yeah, you can see like all the cuts and bruises and blood, and his black eyes gotten worse. Like, he really just looks worse for wear, but that eye, that shot of his eye, just like piercing. And then this guy, this pompous guy says, you don't understand. You're not here to discuss the walls with us. You're here to try to plead your case for us to not kill you. And he says, nor is it because of something as simple as murder. As simple as murder. It's like, that should have been red flag number 1, to be honest. And instead, it's about this stupid Clause 6 Charter of Humanity. And I love that Erwin took that line and shoved it back in his face, Mr. According to Plan. I'm so glad he did, because I was waiting for it. I was like, it was so satisfying. But yeah, and then Lurch here says, you violated the Charter because you've kept Eren to yourself this whole time. He's a threat. And Erwin's like, he's important for claiming Wall Maria. And they try to say it's not for the scouts to decide. But it's like, it's kind of their jurisdiction a little bit. So, it's ridiculous. I hated this whole part here. And them trying to call Erwin out. And then them calling out thing about the abduction and concealment of Eren Yeager and everything. You silenced Demo Reems, which NILE knows is a lie, and it focuses on him, and they talk about him having treason. And then when they called Erwin a threat to humanity, I was like, dudes, and Erwin, his face, like, he stiffens at that. He's like, I'm trying to save everybody, and you're calling me a threat. Props to PYXIS, though, because PYXIS having to hear all that and then go through, it felt like a Dumbledore Snape thing in this moment, and that's when I started to get worried, because PYXIS's question, like, how do we know you're not a comrade of his? And PYXIS, it's like Dumbledore asking Snape to do it. Erwin's like, PYXIS, you got to go along with it. Whatever they ask, you just got to deny that you're involved with me. It's just part of it. You got to create credibility for yourself because of what happens next. And so, and it stays true to PYXIS's character. PYXIS has always been somebody that has wanted to save human lives. PYXIS is on the battlefield and everything. His goal is to minimize casualties. And he's like, if we can save a human life, let's do it. So he makes the note, he's like, in this cramped world we humans have, one spark will engulf all in no time. He's like, so there's no way I'm going to work with Erwin. He's like, I was defending Trost District, and I told my soldiers that before I sent many to their deaths. And so he defends himself there, and I like that NILE this whole time is looking and listening. And so he says, if the scout regiment is that one spark, it should be smothered at once. And Niles is shocked by that. Niles is like, I thought PYXIS would defend him, but it's all according to plan, right? If the Titans do manage to break through, PYXIS says, the wall, and they'll hardly find anybody left inside, those poor Titans might go hungry. And the Lurch guy laughs at that, and I'm kind of with the douche lord that said according to plan when he looks over like, dude, why are you laughing with him? I just, And so then they say, allow us to discuss. And it's like, there's no discussion. There's none. It's like they already know. And the king, I like the fake king, he just sits there and does nothing. He just, his whole job is to look menacing. They hired this man because he looks menacing and creepy. It's kind of amazing. We'll talk about this. But yeah, so I love that the whole time this is happening, NILE is having a crisis. NILE is like, Erwin, you've been my friend since we were kids, since we were in the military together. He's like, is this how you want it to end? Are you wanting to die for this? Like, defend yourself. Like, stand up. NILE knows that Erwin's in the right. He knows that what Erwin is saying is true. And it's not fair that they're blaming him for something that NILE knows didn't happen. And so I love in this moment that NILE is so conflicted. And he's like, PYXIS, why didn't you defend him? What's going on? And then when they give out the sentence, it's like what you've known was coming all along. And this is when I got really sad, because when they were like, you're going to be sentenced to death immediately. And it's just, it's so heartbreaking. And Erwin just stands there and takes it. And he's like, your execution will be carried out immediately. But then he does the smile. He smiles as he stands up, and Niall's like, what are you doing? And it's just for the briefest of seconds. It's for a brief second. And you can barely see it, but Niall notices it because he's watching PYXIS this whole time. And then, yeah, Erwin turns right as the doors break open. And for a second, I didn't realize who this was. And I was like, who is this? But it's PYXIS's right-hand lady, the one that was, telling him to get off the booze earlier. It's her. And Erwin sees her, like, here's the moment. And she's like, Walrose has been breached. And the chaos that ensues in this moment is so masterful and so good. I'm like, Isayama, my dude, this is like such a great setup and payoff. It's so damn good. It's so damn good. Because Niall freaks out. And in that moment you realize, shit, Niall's family is in Walrose. They could be exactly where it's been breached. And that's why Erwin asked. And Erwin said, when it comes, I will sit there and watch. At that point, Erwin's sentence has been passed. There's nothing more Erwin can say. His final words are up. And so he's like, what happens next is up for you to decide and for them. And that's so damn good. Because at the end of the day, it was Niall going along with it, who could have gone along with it or turned away. And Niall's turned away. And it was his reply to the question, and then it was those four scoundrels' reply that they just cared about themselves and saving Walsina. Isayama, my dude, what storytelling. So yeah, saying the Colossal, for a second she's really believable. I thought, I was like, oh shit, the Colossal Titan breached the wall, and so did the armored titan. I was like, did they just bide their time? And for a split second, I thought this was real, and I was like, oh shit, we're converging these storylines now? And I thought they were gonna like put Erwin's sentence on hold, and they were gonna go and try to face the Titans. And then the more that PYXIS talked, on the surface, if you wouldn't know, it seems like he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. He's like, establish a route for the evacuees. He's like, have all the garrison troops converge and defend the east, which is where, and he says the east. He says the east. And that's where NILE knows his family is. And Erwin knew that too. He was just confirming it to NILE. But he knows exactly where they are. Wow, he just 2 steps ahead. And get the evacuees safely to Walsina. Saving the evacuees is our top priority because that's for humanity. And then I love that when the according to plan man says no, PYXIS looks over like, He says, close up the gates to Walsina. Don't let a single refugee inside. And they all just stare at him. All the military police. And Nile's the one that speaks up because his family. And yeah, these guys don't care. He's like, you're commanded to sit back and watch as half of its humanity dies. And he's like, it's just like he said earlier. And I like that he uses Erwin's logic because he knows Erwin was right. He's like, it'll be a civil war. We can't risk that, even though we're going to sentence this man to death that said it. We can't let the government lose control. If that happens, it's over. Like, And then Nile's like, but that's just a possibility. It's not a certainty. Yeah. And he says, it's enough for that possibility to exist. Our authority is and will always be absolute. Now get moving. And then PYXIS is like waiting to see, what do we do? And yeah, she leaves. And then the guy's like, shit, to think the wall will be breached at a time like this. And they're all just sitting there like it's nothing. They're like, well, damn it. Guess that ruins our Sunday. Like, it's just, that's the mentality they have. They're all just sitting their hands on their hips like nothing's gonna be a big thing. But then here's the thing. This was the weird part. Is that they say there is a silver lining, according to Plan Man says. He says, we've already found the power. And all that's left is to bide our time until the vessel takes it. Okay. So I'm guessing, I questioned the last couple episodes who the power and who the vessel were, but I guess we know for sure now that Eren is the power and that Historia is the vessel. So are they wanting Historia to be... Okay, we'll talk about this when we get back to that part, but from the surface it seemed like you'd want the vessel to take the power. But we'll talk about this in a little bit. Yeah, to bide our time. That's right. There's no need to be flustered by this little disaster. This little disaster of half of humanity getting wiped out. It's, no big deal. It's just a chess piece missing. It's fine. It's great. We've got extra pieces. We're good. And it almost looks like the one guy with the handkerchief is probably the most disgruntled about it all. So I'm curious. But the churchman's like, as long as Walsina holds up, we'll be fine. And once Lord Reese comes back, yeah, because the king here, this fake King Fritz is just a fraud. He's no good for anything. And so, yeah, then they ask NILE to close the gates. And NILE is like, wait a minute. I can't in good conscience do this. That's sentencing my family to death. And it goes back to what Erwin told him. He's like, who gets to choose? Who gets to decide? Who lives, who dies, who tells your story, right? And then they tell NILE to hurry it up and get going. It's treason if you don't. And NILE's like, that's my family you've just sentenced to death. And you didn't even bat an eye. And he says no. NILE flew up in my book so much this episode. I am a human of Wall Rose. I was like, damn it, NILE. I gave him a hard time in season 1. But he redeemed himself in this episode. NILE totally redeemed himself. I'm like, damn, okay. All right. I will not allow the gates to be closed. Yep. And then, the military police are all like, nope, we got it. But then, Zachary shows up. What a callback. What a callback. Showing up in his military coat and everything. Dallas Zachary. And then PYXIS is like, are you surprised? And he's like, well, no, these guys are pricks. I can't believe this. He's like, the report was a false alarm, bitches. Rest assured, there's no Titan tag, but y'all just outed yourselves as being selfish pieces of shit. So, oh my God. And then Pix is like, if you want a mastermind, it's me. I love it. And he's like, He's like, the interior police is out there somewhere, but that's quite unfortunate. I love it. He's like, earlier I declared to you that the garrison regiment isn't aligned with the scout regiment. And he's like, but that's true, but we're also not aligned with you guys either. We're aligned with whatever benefits humanity the most. And I like what PYXIS says here. He said that I possess some of the same feelings as ERWIN, but I still believed in the government. PYXIS is kind of like Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen. If you've ever watched Jujutsu Kaisen, PYXIS reminds me a little bit of Nanami. Probably why I like his character, because I love Nanami in that series. But in that series, Nanami in Jujutsu Kaisen, he is all about, he is an independent thinker and he's a progressive thinker, but he understands the purpose of the structure. And Nanami's thing is like, I may not like the structure, but I understand why it's there. So I'm going to follow the rules, but I'm also going to make sure that I do whatever I can within the boundaries set to make sure that I keep the people I need to safe. That's Nanami's whole deal, and I really respect that. And PYXIS' thing here is like, I agree with a lot of what ERWIN is saying, but I realize the government has its place, and y'all have been put in this position for a reason. So even though I agree with ERWIN, you all are the authority, and so I'm going to do what you say as long as it has humanity in mind. But he's like, if that were the better choice for the sake of humanity, that's the key. You are, after all, much wiser than us when it comes to Titans in the walls. You know all the secrets, right? And that's so great, like just shoving it in their faces, like, you guys know the secrets, so y'all should know what we have to do, right? Oh my God. But then in this moment, he's saying, supposing you actually cared about saving as many people as possible, I would have been fine sending ERWIN to the gallows. That's the line. He's like, if y'all had just been, it was a gamble. ERWIN was giving PYXIS an absolute. He's like, okay, I know that you don't want to disobey authority, and a coup is a big deal. It's going to be a big thing. It's going to have a lot of repercussions. But if it's for the best of humanity, here's what's going to happen. We're going to set this whole thing up, and their reply is going to be the signal of whether we have the coup or not. If they had said, because PYXIS is basically saying, if these four had said, okay, bring the people of Wellrose in, we'll save them, we'll deal with the Titan, whatever, then PYXIS would have been fine letting ERWIN go to the gallows, which at that point, it would have been revealed that it had all been a false alarm, and PYXIS probably would have gone to the gallows too. So it was a gamble for both their sakes. But ERWIN was so confident that they were going to be selfish and choose themselves over humanity that they went with it, and that's exactly what happened. This moment was amazing. And then, yeah, we're all prepared to forfeit our heads based on your decision, your reply. Yeah, and the answer you've given us is very clear. And so, yeah, we may be ignorant about the Titans and their powers, but I dare say we, in our ignorance, can save far more people than you ever could. Yeah, I love it. I love it. He's like, we're still going to do better than y'all. And then, and it's like they try to argue with them, and the citizens will never listen to you. They'll obey whatever the crown says. Like, he tries to shove every excuse back. The regional lords will have none of this. And then PYXIS is like, you don't understand. This is not a threat. This is a freaking coup. We ain't gonna let you reason. And then, yeah, they restrained the interior police and Zachary has them all under authority. Yeah. And Zachary's like, the thing with soldiers, they'll obey their superior officer over the king. That's so interesting. That's so interesting. They'll obey their superior officer over the king. Because in reality, if you think about it, you know, they've been in the military with their superior officer. They've been through, these men in the Survey Corps have been with ERWIN through everything. So, and you see on the battlefield, back in episode 12 of season 2, back in Scream, like, those soldiers were ready to give their lives for ERWIN to keep him safe. Like, they were throwing away their lives just to make sure the Titans didn't eat ERWIN back then. And it's like, would they have done the same for the king? I don't know if they would have. That's the thing. I don't think they would have. So it's very interesting that Zachary, we'll talk about Zachary in a minute, that he comes in and says that, especially when the king in question is a fraud. And then the guy just sits there like stone-faced, and they're all freaked out, those four. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love just the shocked look on their faces. And he's like, if this disaster had been real, then you all would have violated the Charter of Humanity. So he's just shove it right back in their faces. And installing a fake king is even worse. Isn't it punishable by death? So that ties to Ymir, right? The idea of personally installing a fake king to personally control and run the government. Is that not punishable by death? So if we're assuming, here's the thing. Are we assuming that Ymir came from this wall kingdom and that these people are the ones that have the ability to turn people into titans? Because Erwin is suggesting that if you're faking being the king, it was punishable by death. And so I'm wondering if, like Ymir, her faking being the king's descendant, they were all arrested and gotten rid of that way. If that's what happened. Because honestly, we don't know. We assume that Erwin's dad and Armin's parents died by gunshot and by that torch. Because we see the gun pointed at Armin's parents on the hot air balloon, and we see the guy. It was Sonus with holding the iron rod that was on fire against Erwin's dad. So we assume that's how they died, but we don't know if they weren't turned into titans. We know that Historia's mom was killed, but or was it her mom that was killed? No, it was. We'll get to that. My brain is too elated by the fact that Erwin is not dead to process. So bear with me. But yeah, Dotard. What time is it? Time to eat? Shut up, you useless oaf. Oh, and yeah, so he was just useless. He was just an actor. So interesting. And so we see the one king being let off, and then they've got the other guys up against the wall. Interesting. And they let Erwin go. And he says it's his victory. And he's like, aren't you happy? And that look from Erwin, he's like, Nile, humanity just started down this new path that's even more dangerous than before. It's like, yeah, we did what was best for humanity, but that doesn't make it easy, and it doesn't make it... We saved humanity, but the way that we had to do it is not something that's easy or great. It's going to be a grim path, because anytime you have a coup and there's a power restructuring, it's a whole different thing. So this was Hanji and Moblet. I thought it was Marlowe and Hitch, but no, it was Hanji and Moblet. And Levi realizes that in just like a second. And oh my God, I was like, yes, awesome. Wonderful. So I was expecting it to be Moblet and I was expecting it to be Hitch and Marlowe, but it was Hanji Moblet. So good deal. And they bring news. And I like that Sasha has to like crane her head like, what's happening? What is it? And bringing the news of what's happened to them. The coup d'etat was successful. Premier Zachary has controlled the capital and the administrative district. And for the time being, the nobility hasn't rebelled. Probably because they're like afraid something else is going to happen. So the administration, so Zachary's taking charge of the administration, which I'm assuming was the man with the rope cords on his jacket. I'm assuming it was his job, perhaps. But yeah, and then they talk about how Flagle came through. It was amazing. We know. Last episode was great. And we cut to Flagle actually confronting the reporter, Roy, and telling Roy that we need to print the truth. And if the Titans attack us again, there'll be nothing left this time. We have to tell the truth while we can. And you know that Roy is hesitant because he's known from the past that people have been silenced and what can happen. But he does it because he's threatened. And so it's nice that Flagle and it was like Pierre, they convinced Roy to publish the story. The charges were bogus. These people abused their powers. Yeah, you see all of it. And that King Fritz was a total fake. And that all the actions were justified self-defense. And then, yeah, the moment she said that they're free people, like all the Survey Corps members, like all the scouts, they all have this little gleam in their eye and they're like, yeah! And then what I like about this scene is when they're all jumping in the air, like Connie has this dramatic pose. Armin is like, yeah. John is like, yeah. And Levi is just reading like, okay. Mikasa was not going to do anything, but Sasha has her in like a headlock and is like, yeah. Like, it's wonderful. And then Hanji's like in mid-explanation. that they said that they're free people now. So they're not going to be wanted by the law. How about that? But, well, Lord Reese is still around, so we don't know. But yeah, Levi says the gamble paid off, but I'm like, don't speak too soon. Yeah, and I like that Hanji says it wasn't just Erwin's gamble. It was the gamble of many people, the lone choices of many who managed to change the world. Yeah, everything leading up to this. Jean's trust, Flegel, Demo, Marlowe, like not just Erwin, but all these people. The reporter, Zachary, NILE. Yeah. And then all Levi can say is, I managed to kill the 3 people you loaned me. Levi's like, I've not done really anything great in this scenario except kick a guy's teeth in and kill 3 of your men. So, you know. But I love this moment where he says, I'm sorry. And him and Hanji have the soft moment together. They just look at each other and they have this little soft moment. That's so good. I love that. I love that moment between them. I don't ship Levi and Hanji at all. I don't really ship Hanji with anybody. Even Moblet. I think Moblet would be the only person I maybe ship them with, but not really. Hanji's not really, doesn't seem interested in that. But I love that Hanji and Levi have this camaraderie. They have this friendship that's like almost unspoken. It's sort of like Levi can just look over to Hanji and Hanji can look over to Levi and they just give each other a look. And it's like, we know what each other's thinking. They're like BFFs. I love that. I love that relationship between them. And then Levi saying, the thing is, part of the interior police, their leader, Eren, and Historia are somewhere else. Yeah, so the Kenny squad is still at large, which is a problem because they're probably more dangerous than some of the military police that are captured. And then they don't know where Eren and Historia are. And then they're worried about Eren getting eaten. And then Hanji has the book with the incident that we're going to talk about. Okay, so title information. When this came up on the screen, I was like, what? Like, why are we getting this now? Underground chapel. I'm assuming it's the chapel underneath where the original chapel burnt down. Am I right? So, underground chapel, a sacred location where the royal family's power, so it is Historia, but the royal family's power has been passed down for generations. The walls are composed of a naturally luminescent ore, which is thought to have created some form of titan. Wait, let me read that again. Wait, what? What? A sacred location where the royal family's power has been passed down for generations. The walls are composed of a naturally luminescent ore, which is thought to have been created by some form of titan power. Oh! So for a second I thought it said the titan power came from the ore, and I was like, what? No, it's saying that the columns are created like out of the titan skin. So out of like the hardened titan skin, it's like Annie, they're luminescent ore, which is just like the material around Annie, the crystal that's formed around Annie. So this whole chapel was built by a damn titan. Great. So, okay. I'm thinking about this, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it. All right. There's this nice sacrificial area because, you know, and it cut right from that sacrificial area to the gallows. That hard cut from like the sacrificial little place where Eren's strung up and there's steps leading up to it. That little area is cutting straight to the gallows. Like that hard cut is not lost on me. That symbolism there. But yeah, so the gallows that were built, there's Erwin and Zachary. As a result of Erwin's actions, it was declared that the current regime would be ousted. The announcement came immediately after, and everybody's like sitting there going, huh? And so the capital in the administrative district. And Erwin doesn't look pleased. Erwin, who's still beat up, is like, he's like, this is going to be hard. It's going to be a hard thing. And then, yeah, the whole announcement took place on the gallows constructed specifically for him. And then Erwin, he looks so tired. He does look so tired when he looks over to see NILE. And NILE's explaining to the reporters, he's like, look, our goal is not to establish a military rule. We'll have a ruler. We've got this all. The new ruler will be from the true royal family, not these frauds. So they're going to lead the people. And the reporters are like, do you think the people will simply just accept a new ruler? And it's like, no, it's not going to be easy to accept. It's like, there's going to be a lot of doubt and suspicion, right? And so, yeah, even though I'm glad the coup happened, because clearly the people in charge were no good, it's not going to be easy. People are going to have to be placed in charge instead. It's like, what do we do now? And even if you get Historia on the throne, there's going to be a lot of people that don't like her. And so, or are skeptical or untrustworthy of her. So, Erwin says there's a lot of citizens who are very worried. And then, yeah, at this point, who do we trust? And that goes right back to the last episode, the idea of trust. Who do we trust, right? What do we believe in? Because everything's been thrown into turmoil. Yeah. And so, here's the thing. This conversation that Erwin has with Zachary is so intriguing. Because Erwin starts out the conversation by saying, for the sake of humanity, we should have let the government do as they please. Like Commander PYXIS was saying, they've somehow devised a means of keeping humanity alive until now. Even if they watch as half of humanity dies, it's better than us going extinct. So the writing on the wall is, even though their actions were very selfish, at the end, that there is some justification to that. And Erwin's acknowledging it. He's like, yeah, we used that against them in the moment. We used that selfishness against them in the moment because it was very convenient for us and it helped us get our job done. And we were manipulating the people who it was going to affect, specifically NILE and the military police that came from Walrose. But Erwin's saying that they weren't wrong, because Erwin brought up, he's like, if you bring all these people from Walrose in, they're probably going to cause a civil war with Walsena because there's not enough resources to survive. So you're going to have a civil war and people are going to die. So he's like, in this moment, Erwin's kind of melancholy about it, because he's thinking, we did this for our own reasons and our own survival, but at what cost? Because in the reality of things are, this coup, it's not going to be easy to transition power. There's going to be a lot that goes into maintaining order that we haven't really thought about because Titans and other things going on. But also, if that scenario happened, do you let all the refugees in and there's a civil war and humanity may go extinct, or do you cut them off? And that's a hard question. There's no good answer. There's no good answer to that question, because you either let them all in and risk a civil war and people dying, or you let them all die outside the wall and hope that... But here's the thing with that, and I like being the neutral party and playing devil's advocate, but here's the other thing too. It's like, do you have the right to choose whose life is more important, first of all? My dog's like scratching over here. Do you have the right to choose that? Do you have the right to choose that? And what's better for humanity? It's a bold question. And he asks Zachary, he's like, should I have let Eren go, risked my comrades' lives, and given up both my life and my duty, and entrusted it all to the government? He's like, would it have worked out? If humanity is more precious than one single life, then what? It's like, and Erwin's doubting himself. He's like, we did all this and mission accomplished, but he doesn't feel successful about it. He feels the weight of what happens next. What do we do now? It's going to be chaotic for a while. Was it worth the risk? Was it worth the gamble? And I like that Zachary just looks at him and he's like, your duty is as painful as ever. It's like, dying seems a far easier option. And it's like, what does they say in Hamilton? Dying is easy, living is harder. It's like, yeah, it's calling right back to that. And then he's like, well, if that's the case, then why didn't you just do it? Why'd you? And then Zachary cuts him off. He's like, don't tell me. I want to tell you my reason first. He's like, because I hate those guys and they piss me off. I've hated those bastards. I love that Erwin's like, what? He's like, nah, they're pompous pricks. I'm glad they're out of power. He's like, maybe I actually liked them. I don't know. I've been dreaming for this day to come for ages. Like, he's been waiting. And I like that he establishes, like, even if you hadn't done it, he's like, I would have probably tried before I died. I really like Zachary's character. He's kind of a sleazy scoundrel, but I love it. Because, yeah, he's like, I could care less about this whole coup d'etat and whether it's good or bad for everybody. He's like, I'm a scoundrel and I was in it for myself, my own personal reasons. You're no different than me. He's like, at the end of the day, I did this coup for me and what it was doing for me. You're no different, right? You didn't want to die. And I don't think Erwin did. And he said, just like me, you prioritize yourself over the fate of humanity. That is such an intriguing line. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, Erwin, he wants to see... He has a dream. He's like Kenny. They have a dream. I find the parallels between Kenny and Erwin fascinating. Very fascinating, especially, like I said in previous reactions, because Levi's in the center of it all. And so I find it fascinating that both him and Kenny, this season specifically, have said they have a dream. So I'm like, okay, boys, what's your dream? We gonna find out this season? I hope. Yeah, but that line, you prioritize yourself over the fate of humanity. And then Erwin's like, I must be very conceited. And Zachary's like, well, yeah, but what was your reason you were going to tell me? It's your turn to answer. And so, yeah, and Erwin's saying, yeah, I am conceited. I have a dream. And then we cut back to his dad teaching, and Erwin is the one standing. He's the only one standing up in the class. Everyone else, if you look, everyone else is looking down for the most part, but Erwin is the only one standing up looking at his dad and the board. He's like, one I've had since I was a child. And I wonder if his dream is to go outside the walls, like Eren. I wonder if Erwin has the same dream as Eren. Because Erwin's whole thing has been the reconnaissance. It's been to reclaim and make a base outside of the wall so that they can live outside the walls. And I wonder if he looks at that poster where his dad's teaching and he sees the people coming in from outside the wall and he's like, I want to go out there. I wonder if that's his dream. If his dream is to leave the wall and go outside. I don't know. But we don't get much else from Erwin in this episode. We get everything from Hanji and then from Eren and them. So we go back to Exposition no Jutsu from Hanji, who explains the incident that happens from the book. Erwin gave me this scout investigation report regarding Lord Reese's land. And so most of it has to do with an incident 5 years ago that shook up the Reese family. So here's the thing. This is it. Okay, right? So Armin's like, 5 years ago, on the day Wall Maria was breached. Funny that. On the day that Wall Maria was breached. This all happened the same day. Interesting. And we're going to go back to what Kenny said. Like, did you panic? On the day it was breached. So it's important to realize where Eren was when this was breached. So, because I'm going to come back to this. So Eren, where he was at, Eren was in Shiganshina next to his house. So he was in Shiganshina, and this happened like northern Wall Rose. So there was a considerable distance between there. I'll summarize the important bits from the beginning. As the lord of his territory, popular opinion of Rod Reese wasn't all that bad. So it shows, here's the thing. It shows there's 5 kids. There's the girl with black hair and a boy who look like they're the oldest. And then there's 3 little kids. He had 5 children. His eldest daughter, Frida, was a down-to-earth girl that even the peasants adored. Yeah, she has the hat and everything. We don't know about the other 4 kids, though. But that night, 5 years ago, disaster struck. With the world plunged into pure chaos, some bandits raided and set fire to the only chapel around. But here's the thing. So this happened the night after Shiganshina fell. That night. Not during the day, but the night of. Okay, so Shiganshina's fell. And the chapel... But the chapel looks like Connie's village. Like it was destroyed from within. Right? Okay. And it shows the family that the entire Reese family was praying together. Were they? That's the question. And the whole family, save for the head of the house, Rod Reese, who mysteriously survived somehow, how that happens, you know, was massacred by the bandits. But to top it off, the incident occurred just a few days before Historia's mother was murdered, and he came to get Historia. In other words, immediately after losing his family, Rod Reese sought out Historia. But he didn't get her. So here's the weird thing with that, okay? So according to Hanji's story, Rod Reese, they went to this church the night of all the chaos with Shiganshina and were praying inside the church. The church was raided by bandits and set on fire. Only Rod Reese escapes. The rest of his family die. And that night, and then a day later, he goes to get Historia and then kills the mother of his illegitimate child. Okay. So, if that's the case, though, why did Kenny stop him? Again, if he was going after Historia, why'd Kenny stop him and try to kill her? Unless Kenny knows something that we don't. Unless Kenny figured out some secret with the royal family and was like, hell no, we need to get rid of this girl. And then Lord Reese convinced him not to, using his authority. So curious. There must be a reason why him and his lackeys are after Historia. Yeah, well, they found her, but they let her go again, so... And then Levi is all like us. He's like, is there a secret to their blood? I'm like, I think so. I don't know yet for sure. But what really makes me curious is that parts of the chapel were completely wrecked. The chapel itself is stone. It would take tons of time and effort to destroy. Yeah, unless you were a Titan. Bandits would take what they can and make a quick escape. And the only one who saw the bandit was Rod Reese himself. Of course he was. And after that, he used his own fortune to rebuild the chapel. But why? Yeah, yep. Everybody's thinking. Everybody's like got the tinfoil hats on. If you think about it, it's actually stranger that there were no traces of Titans. Indeed. Even if I'm jumping to conclusions, Hanji says something suspicious deserves checking out. Yeah. So, okay. I've been thinking about this. And about Historia. And we talked about the blood and the Kool-Aid of the king having magical powers. Could Historia's blood, could the blood of the king... I talked about this a little bit in a few reactions prior. That the people were very interested in Ymir being descendant of the king. Because it said that it would, as long as they had someone of king's blood around, they would get immortality. And I theorized a few episodes ago that the reason for that would be that the king's blood somehow could turn these people into Titans. That could be it, right? It could be the king's blood that they ingested and that they become Titans, like the pure Titans. And then somehow, the only thing that doesn't add up in that equation is where the Titan shifters come from, where they come into play with all that. But, so, okay. If the king's, are we saying that one of Rod's family became a Titan that night and destroyed the chapel? That could be it, right? Maybe? Could we say, if we're assuming that this underground mystery dungeon that is underground, that where Eren is at, is like a sacrificial area, it wouldn't be far-fetched to believe that on the night that Shiganshina fell, Rod Reese freaked out and then maybe had one of his kids become the coordinate. Maybe this Frida girl, maybe somebody else become a Titan and become the coordinate. And then maybe Eren ate them along the way. I don't know. That there's still puzzle pieces missing, but I'm thinking out loud. So yeah, then we go to the actual chamber, speak of the devil, and we get Eren. His eyes are closed like he's dreaming. And then we have this girl brushing her hair. And there's like gold chains. It's the Frida girl, right? And she has a necklace that's green. But this almost looks like a dream, right? It's kind of like got that glossy thing. And then we see her. But she has like... But she kind of looks like Eren. She kind of looks like Eren in the mirror. She doesn't look like... This girl doesn't look like the Frida that's in the OP or ED. She looks a little bit different. She looks like her eyes and her eyebrows look like Eren's. What the hell? Excuse me? Why is that weird? And then it's in the mirror. And then she looks in the mirror and her eyes get big. And that's when Eren wakes up. What? What? That's weird. I don't understand because it almost looks like he's behind her. And there's a necklace that has a green gem on it that's kind of like the color of Eren's eyes. Her eyes seem blue like Historia's. But she doesn't look like, didn't Frida, I'll have to look at the ED, didn't Frida have like kindergarten bangs, like the cut bangs? This girl, her hair looks kind of like Eren's. It's like off to the side. What? That's weird. And she looks over him, but she looks kind of like Eren. It's odd. It's kind of very strange. And then Eren wakes up. Huh. And then, man, poor Eren. Like, they got his hands all bandaged up. I just now noticed that. They got his hands bandaged up so he can't bite them. Eren's pretty ripped. I feel very uncomfortable watching this because Eren's 15, and this is like a 15-year-old kid, and he's ripped. Like, he has more muscles than most 20-year-olds. Which, granted, he's been in the Survey Corps. You gotta have some core strength to be in the Survey. For Survey Corps, you gotta have a core. And that's poor Eren. But I'm like, does he have to be shirtless? This place looks cold. Did they have to make him shirtless? It's like, that's where I'm a little uncomfortable, because I'm like, you didn't have to make him shirtless. Not really. But then, yeah, there's all of these columns made of, like, the Titan skin, and it's like an altar, and then there's, like, the floor and everything. This looks like it's made by a Titan. Okay, so Eren's gonna be sacrificed here. We don't know to whom yet. But yeah, so they're trying to get soldiers all over Rhys's land. And then they're trying to hurry there before something happens. We have to hurry up. And Mikasa looks like she's about to go on a warpath. She's like, just you wait. Just you wait. But yeah, and then Armin's trying to piece it all together. Armin's like, if a Titan... Armin says, again, what we've been thinking. He's like, if a Titan eats a person who can change into a Titan and inherits their powers, then okay. If that's actually true, that means that Eren ate someone. How did Eren become a Titan? And who did he eat to gain his powers? Exactly. That's the question. Who did Eren eat? So... and then Eren's trying to get out, but they have, like, chained him up. Ugh. And then Historia looks super creepy. She, like, shows up. And she has the shoes! Historia has, like, the sandals. The shoe in the OP that fell off and landed on the floor. She has the shoe on. And she's dressed in all white, kind of like Ymir when Ymir is about to be sacrificed, I'm assuming. She's in all white, too. And she looks really sad. What the hell? So, okay, theory time. Theory time. Okay. So, if we go by that theory, I want to see the ED because I want to see the Frida girl, if she looks different than the one girl that we just saw in Eren's vision or dream or whatever. Because I'm like, what? So, okay, I want to go back to this ED and get to that part where she is with her at the very end. And we have the blood in the water. Okay. And she's running down the flowers and the pathway. And so, yeah. Okay, so, well, the hat makes it look like she almost had kindergarten bangs, but it's not. It was just the hat. Yeah, so no, she looks the same. She kind of does look like Eren, though. It's kind of creepy. I want to go back to the OP and see her in the OP, because she is in the OP. Let me see. Interesting. And kind of looks like Carla too, right? The girl kind of looks like Carla as well. The only other character we saw that was like slightly older looked like the son, but I don't know. I'm so confused. I'm baffled by Frida's play in all of this. I'm assuming maybe we'll get some insight in the next episode of where she fits in with all of this, because we don't know enough about her. We just know in the OP that she's with Historia. But okay, so if she's with Historia, is she really with Historia, or that's a big question mark, because here's the thing, if she died, that's why I think that she's the Titan shifter. that she was the coordinate. I think she was the coordinate and Eren ate her. So if the night that Shiganshina fell, Rod Reese was terrified, and so he's like, I need to protect the coordinate. And so either his daughter Frida was already the coordinate, because here's what she said: everybody adored her that was around her. Well, it could be that like magnetism or something. They're like magnetized towards her because she's the coordinate. They all like her. Kind of like everybody kind of rallies behind Eren at times. Something similar maybe. So could it be that she's been the coordinate this whole time, and then she survived Shiganshina's fall along with Rod Reese, and he just hid her underground until he could rebuild the chapel and let her out? I don't know. But then could she be the one that Eren ate to get the powers? And then my question would be, how would Eren have gotten to her? But I think that's where Grisha would come in. Because that night Grisha came to Wall Rose, he was in a carriage. He was driving a carriage and he was trying to find Eren. So could it be that he had her with him? That Grisha had this Frida girl with him? And that's how Eren got the powers, by he turned Eren into a Titan and made him eat her? I don't know. There's a big old question mark there, but I don't know. But there was a syringe involved. So if he was injecting Eren with something. So here's what could have happened. What I don't know is where if Frida was the coordinate, or if she had the power at some point. I want to go back to that one line that he said that the one colonel said in the episode when they were discussing things. I want to go back to that. Because I want to go back to them talking amongst themselves. But okay, so here's my thing. If Frida was the coordinate and Rod had made his own daughter because she's royal blood, if he'd made her a Titan and made her the coordinate because she was his family to keep her safe, and let's say Shiganshina fell and Grisha took off with her or something. I don't know. That doesn't make sense though. My brain is like, it's like trying to connect all these dots that are scattered across the board, and it's failing miserably. Eren ate someone to get the coordinates powers. We know that. Why Eren thought of this dark-haired girl with the long hair that looks really sad in that moment, why he thought of her, I don't know. Why she popped up in his head, I don't know. Is she still alive? We don't know. We don't know for sure. That's the thing. Supposedly she died in the fire, and Rod Reese was the only one that survived. Supposedly, but who's to say she didn't survive too? And he's been keeping her and holding her until he could get the coordinate to give her the power. I don't know, but someone was the coordinate, and Eren became a Titan to eat them. Eren had to have become a Titan to eat them and become the coordinate. I don't know where Frida plays into this. I don't know what her role is yet. I'm assuming we're going to find that out soon. But I think that Grisha, the night Shiganshina fell, Grisha got a hold of the coordinate somehow, had him stuffed in that carriage or something, ready to he's a doctor, so he could have had drugs. He could have drugged the coordinate. He could have sedated the coordinate and drug him, took him out into the woods, grabbed Eren from Wall Rose. He could have sedated Mikasa. And Armin so that they wouldn't know. He could have drugged them, took off with Eren. He could have been like, okay, Eren, I'm going to make you into a Titan, and I'm going to have you eat the coordinates so you can get the power. And then he turned Eren into a Titan and had it to where the coordinate was the first person that Eren encountered, and Eren, being a Titan, ate the coordinate, turned back into Eren, had the coordinate powers, and then Grisha dropped him off at the basement key and was like, you'll figure it all out one day, son, and then peaced out Geen style. That is my theory. But my question is, how did Grisha get a hold of the coordinate if that's the case? And where was the coordinate? Where was Grisha? Why did it happen on the day Shiganshina fell? What's the significance? I feel like a sim with the big question marks all around its head and thought bubbles. You all know the answers. But I don't want you to tell me. I'm sure the last 5 minutes of me theorizing has to be the most frustrating thing you've ever heard in your life. But I swear, I have a feeling it's going to come out in the next couple episodes, or at least a piece of the puzzle is going to come out in the next couple episodes. But so I'll just hold off until that point. But here's the thing. Here is the thing, though. I was surprised that the 4 individuals, the guy with the lapels, the Mr. According to Plan, Old Lurch, the man with the kerchief, and the churchman went down so easily. I mean, it's surprising that the false King Fritz was just an actor and was actually just good at sitting there looking menacing. That's a funny surprise. It's like, oh, okay. I thought he was going to be super intimidating, but he's not. But I am surprised that those 4 went down so easily. I thought they'd have a little bit more prowess than that. But then maybe we're setting up the people with the real prowess are the Titan Shifters. Maybe that's what we're setting up. That it would be a kind of a funny irony if the dumb monsters are the guys that have been leading humanity and the intelligent ones are the Titan Shifters that are trying to act against humanity. That would be kind of funny in a very dark, cruel way. But yeah, so I'm curious to know if those guys will be kept around for questioning, if they'll try to figure out what they've been hiding. Where's Rod Reese and all this? I guess we're going to figure out next episode. Next episode is halfway through part 1, is the halfway point, and it is a 4th of the way through the season. So take with that what you will. This episode I felt good at up until the last 30 seconds. Kind of like the last episode. I felt good up until the last 30 seconds. And then I was like, wait, what's happening with Eren? I don't like this. So I'm at that point with my theorizing that I have ideas, but again, there's one piece of the puzzle missing. It's like you have the puzzle, but you can't quite see what the picture of the puzzle is supposed to be. There's like a big important chunk missing and we don't have it yet. And so there you go. But yeah, so I hope that I didn't make you all extremely annoyed and frustrated with my ramblings and trying to make sense of this all, but I was extremely happy that Erwin lived. I was so proud of NILE and so proud of PYXIS. They're both bosses. I'm on board the NILE train now. It's like Bertolt and Ymir from season 2. Bertolt and Ymir from season 2 started out in C rank and rose to S rank. NILE has started out in like C rank and has rose up to A rank already. I'm like, dude. And PYXIS, he's still right up there as well. So I'm very curious. But yeah, Kenny's still at large. And the fact that we've not had mention of him for a while is concerning. Because we don't know what he's up to. And then the fact that these guys, that the 4 military men are not dead, that they're still there and can escape or get out somehow, that's concerning too. And in the midst of all of this, we have no clue what the Titans are doing. In the midst of all this chaos, we have no clue. Because at any point, they could breach Walrose. Here's the thing. They could breach Walrose because everything's so chaotic right now. If they wanted to, Bertolt and Reiner could just... When that happened, it was so believable because I'm like, no, they could show up and just cause havoc because now's the time. That's the scary part. The scary part is while all this conflict is going on, in the back of my head watching these episodes, it's been tense and it's been crazy. But the back of my mind, I keep thinking Bertolt and Reiner could show up at any moment and cause a scene. And that's the last thing we want to happen right now in the midst of all this ridiculous coup and transition of power. So yeah, I don't know what we're going to do. This next episode, I knew that we were going to start out this episode with Erwin's trial, but I didn't know where we were going to go to from here. But I definitely have no clue where we're going next episode, especially us leading off with whatever's happening with the Reese family. I don't know. So I guess we'll find out, right? I guess we'll find out. So I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction. I'm glad Erwin's alive. I feel for my boys PYXIS and NILE. I'm glad that the scouts and the Survey Corps are officially free people. They're free. They're not going to get charged for treason and hung. There's been a coup. They're trying to get Historia rescued so she can become queen. What if Historia doesn't want to become queen? That's another thing too. Before I end this reaction. It is not lost on me that just like Eren, the difference between Eren and Historia is Eren, the Survey Corps has been like, yeah, we're going to use your power. But Eren's also on board with that because he knows it's to help humanity and he knows it's to help get revenge on his mother's death and Hannes' death now too. So Eren's on board with it because it's helping his agenda just as much as it's helping humanities and the Survey Corps. Historia becoming queen is not helping her agenda at all. Historia doesn't want to even be here. Historia wants to be with Ymir. So it's great that they want to put her on the throne and that she's the rightful heir. That's wonderful. But Historia doesn't want that. Historia's never expressed the desire to be like in the limelight or in the spotlight or have like wealth or power. She's never wanted that, so that we know of. So, what? I get worried about that. The Historia is getting tugged into various directions in ways she doesn't want to, and I feel for Historia because I don't like that. Historia is wanting to be her own person, and that's hard when people are tugging at you. So I don't know what to think about it. But I guess we'll find out at the halfway point next episode. So in the meantime, I hope y'all enjoyed my ramblings and this reaction. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, next week, episode 6 of season 3, Attack on Titan. We'll see what happens. Bye.